When someone tells you that a Russian threat on American soil doesn't exist, that's just speculation. And in fact, there's historical evidence to say otherwise. So yes, you should be prepping for something to happen here in the United States, no matter how unlikely it might be. And a lot of people will scoff when you talk about things in the sense of being able to defend yourself and possibly your homeland. And when you go through and start looking at things like stockpiles of ammunition or other related items, people tend to think that they're overrated or not necessary. Yet I would say that at this point in time, it's a good idea to have something ready for that scenario to unfold just in case it does. Back in 2010, 10 Russian spies were arrested here on American soil in an FBI sting operation known as Operation Ghost Stories. Now this really happened, and these Russian spies were trying to assimilate their lives here in the United States and had a mission in order to basically gather intel and recruit other Russian spies from America by spending decades here on our soil, getting married, having children, buying homes and cars, and doing everything else you would consider to be American. Yet they were found to be working for Russia and were arrested. This happened in 2010. These things still happen today. You don't think they caught everybody now, do you? Now, with that in mind, what else is going on here in the country that should raise some alarms to you about the possibility of this happening if Russia becomes so provoked that they feel they have to act within the United States, okay? Listen, all these things have precedent, and we should plan for something like this, even if it's not likely, due to the fact that we have this evidence from other events to show us that it's a possibility, right? The southern border is something you should be taking a look at. It is extremely porous, more porous than probably ever right now, and more people are coming through it that are unauthorized than almost ever before. And in the year 2021, over 2 million unauthorized migrants made their way across the border. And a lot of those people were picked up by FBI as well as the CBP and anyone else related to Homeland Security because they were from other nations besides Mexico and had ties to different entities that you and I would both not want to be affiliated with. These are problems that are happening right this second. It is extremely easy to get into this country regardless of who you are or where you're from. Now, with that information in mind, keep this scenario front and center. April 16th, 2013, the Metcalfe power station attack occurred. What was that, you say? Well, we've talked about it a couple times, but this is a good reminder for why this is something that could possibly happen and why we should be paying attention, okay? This power station attack was basically carried out by snipers, and they took out, I believe, multiple different transformers that cost $15 million to repair. That's a huge amount of money to be spent on damages caused by, strangely enough, 7.62 by 39, which is generally what AK-47s are chambered in. Now this seems very interesting in the sense of that chambering and that ammunition type and those type of rifles being used in this scenario, and now we're talking about the possibility of having things happen here within the country from a foreign aggressor who created that weapons platform and that ammunition. Now, that was an attack that was extremely effective, has never been solved, and no one's ever been arrested for. Interesting, isn't it? Okay? Now moving on from there, in December of 2020, we had an attack on a gas system in Colorado. It was in Aspen, Colorado, and basically this attack was at a gas transit system where all the different gas flow was connected to make its way to different regions basically, and somebody went in there on foot in person and literally just shut it off with like a valve, all right? And then they wrote some stuff on there like Earth First, which was some kind of activist group or something like that, but we all know that vandalism and graffiti is a good way to maybe get the dogs off your scent, right? So there's a lot of precedent set for how easy targeting our infrastructure, as well as getting into our country, and as well as there being sleeper cells already established here in the country, for us to want to prepare for something negative to happen here from that current situation. Keep in mind that Russia is being provoked daily at this point when it comes to sanctions, when it comes to weapons being transferred to that region, when it comes to a lot of different things. And to assume that they don't have anything in place here already, that all they would need is to make a phone call to cause chaos or problems for both you and I, depending on where we're located. I mean, that's very naive of you to think. These things exist, and this can really happen, and you should be prepping for it. Don't let people basically scoff at you, or don't let people confirm your normalcy bias for you and tell you you don't need to worry about that. This will never happen. You know what? A lot of people said that about what happened over in Eastern Europe right now too. They said that would never happen, and it happened. Things can just happen. Never bet on it won't happen. That's a terrible way to go. Why are you even a prepper then, right? This is what we do. We prepare for every possibility. And right now we see what's happening with these food processing plants. Now look, at the end of the day, statistically, it's not really as impactful as it might seem in the sense of the way the media is putting it out there. But if you do a quick search on food processing plants set on fire, you get a lot of news stories from a lot of different places of a lot of different processing plants that are suddenly catching fire. So even though it's probably not something to be alarmed about right this second, it's definitely worth keeping an eye on. And then when you combine the information we just talked about in the sense of sabotage on infrastructure and the fact that sleeper cells exist and that we're basically in a cold, hot conflict with Russia right this second, regardless of which way you look at it, there's a lot of things we need to keep in mind. And look, I will never stop prepping in the sense of self-defense and my ability to defend myself, my family, and my homeland if need be, because it is part of what we have to do to survive and thrive. You can survive in an occupied territory. People are doing it right now, but it's not going to be very good. And it's probably something you don't want to expose your family to either. So I don't care how likely the situation is, but based on things that have happened before and based on things that are happening now, I'm not going to go ahead and just assume this would never happen, and neither should you. So yes, make sure you're prepping for something like that to happen here, and if it ever does, you'll be glad you did, and if you're like me, you'll hope it never does, and you won't care that you did because it's still a good time in many ways. As you can see, I might make my way to the range once or twice a year. You know I'm lying. And that's going to be it for Magic Prepping.